director Isaac Ezban.
The movie for the first time and regretting he programmed it at the festival.
I don't actually. I actually think this is a really interesting film. I enjoyed it. I want to know a lot of stuff about it, but first, instead of asking you about the beginnings, tell me about the visual part of it, because at some points it feels it's black and white, but then I feel the colors coming in, a lot of yellows and greens, so tell me about the behind the colors of the film.
Well, first of all, thank you all for sticking around. I mean, it's past everyone's bedtime now, and you're all here, you enjoyed Párvulos, and you stayed through the credits and through the Q&A. And so thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoy this ride that we had for you tonight. Thank you for playing it, Samuel. And now the color palette of the movie. I always like when you can use all the elements at your disposal: the sound, the music, the color, to tell the story or to elevate something. And I saw this movie that really inspired the color palette. It's a movie that is not a horror movie, it's not related to horror at all. It's a movie with Will Smith called Emancipation, the Ainton Fuqua movie. I don't know if you saw it on Apple TV, the one about the slaves. And I saw that movie and I was so impressed by how it wasn't actually black and white, but the colors were really muted, like it was a world with no color, a world with no hope. And I told my DP, you have to watch that movie, you have to do something like this. But it's not only color grading. This goes from, we did it in the camera. We added well, first we worked with anamorphic lenses, which gives you this sense in the surrounding of the lens, like it looks like distorted, like it looks like it belongs to like a children's world, like a fairy tale in a way. We also used a black promise filter. The black promise, what it does is it blows up all the highlights, so it looks so, and it's something we got from movies like, like Inside Will Davis or like The Box, movies that are not even horror movies, but I like how they play with the light like this. And then in terms of the color grading, yes, we made all the colors really muted. I didn't want to make it like black and white, because I feel like black and white can seem a bit maybe like pretentious, and also it's losing a lot of if you go full black and white. But I like the idea that, well, this is a world with no hope, a world with no joy, a world with no cheerfulness, so a world with no color. But the hope lies in the past. And that's why, or in the past, or in the portals to other worlds. What are portals to other worlds? What they see on TV, the books they read, the drawings they make, everything that, the pictures. So we went full color on that because the hope lies in that. Even in the end, when he sees the photo of the family in Christmas, it's in full color. Maybe it's too obvious, maybe it's too on the nose, but it's a way to use color to tell the story. So it's what I went through. When I like, somebody made a review in their box after Fantastic Fest mentioning memories are brighter. And I was like, yeah, he got the movie. And we're just talking about it, about memories and how they're always look brighter. So that's in a way what the movie's about, yeah.
So I'm guessing you started writing this during COVID?
No, actually this is a project that's been on my mind for like 8 years. Like the first draft of this comes from 2016, even before I made Parallel, before I made Evil Eye. And this was supposed to be my third movie. I was going to shoot it in summer 2016. We had the casting going and all that, then it didn't happen. Then it was going to be done in 2018. Then it didn't happen, then it was going to be done in 2020, and of course 2020 had its plan for everyone. It didn't happen, and all these times we opened up the casting process, and of course you cannot use those actors again because the children grow. But then in 2020, when the pandemic happened, I was like, oh, whoa, like, if I have a movie about the end of the world and actually the world is for real coming to an end, I'm just going to put it into the movie. So I ended up putting the pandemic in the movie. For me, it's like a very slight reference, like the movie's not even about that, but it's interesting how like all the reviews think about that, and all the press interviews where I talk about that, is this like an anti-vaxxer movie or not? I'm like, no, I just wanted to put like a little knot in the pandemic.
And I mean, we've seen zombies, not zombies, well, are they zombies? They're sort of zombies, but they're...
We call them infected, yeah.
Okay, but we've never seen like how finally they come to life, right? The mother is coming to life, so there's the hope, and then so now they continue. There's hope at the end.
Yeah, it's an ending that is like both sides. There's hope in the ending, and it's also a sad and tragic ending. Just like life, it has like both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. And where did you shoot the movie?
We shot the movie. Actually, it was all done in Mexico City, like not in the actual city. It was in La Marquesa, which is, if you all know, it's like a 30-40 minute drive from the city. We wanted to shoot in Jalisco, but it was too expensive to take all the crew there. And Mal de Ojo was all done in the Ajusco. Párvulos was all done in La Marquesa, so I'm just finishing all the woods that are nearby. Logistics were complicated because we couldn't afford to pay a hotel to everyone in the crew. So we just had vans in many areas in the city, like in Churubusco, Condesa, Centro, in Juarez, and people would have to go to the Pico location, go to the La Marquesa for a shooting day, and then come back, except for the basement. That was in Anzures, near Polanco. The basement was 1 week in the city, so I was like, oh, thank God we're in the city. But the other 5 weeks, it was a very hard logistic because every day, like if the movie wraps at like 7 p.m., you don't get to your house by 8. You start entering the city by 8:30, all the traffic get to your peak of location by 9, get to your house at 10, 11. And then when you wake up in the morning, the same. If the call starts at 7, people have to be up like at 4. So by week 4 or 5, like people were really, really, really tired. The logistics were really hard. We still always like to treat people well and give them like souvenirs and chocolates whenever we ended up a little 5 minutes after for lunch, and make people feel comfortable in the set. And I think everyone was happy making the movie, but still the logistics of going there every day were hard. Yeah, it is the house of a guy called El Capitan, who used to be a pilot, and he retired and made his home there in La Marquesa. Really cool guy. Yeah.
Okay. How come the mother does say puerco? Did you try to say, should I make them talk or not talk, or?
Well, yeah, because the movie is also a metaphor about family dynamics and how the universal truth about first parents take care of the children, and it's the other way around. Mm-hmm. So I wanted it to feel like there's a human side of them. Like there's like they can almost, at some point, they can kind of recognize, maybe they don't know exactly the names of the children, who the children are, or they know it's somebody they care for. But then in a moment of stress, like the mother in the end, she bites the kid because out of like self-defense, like she's feeling attacked, they're stabbing her and all this. But I wanted it to feel like that side of humanity on them. Like
they have sex, yeah?
Yeah.
There's a scene where zombies having sex. I mean, infected. I've never seen that before.
That's a good addition to the zombie universe. Yes. It's an interesting scene. It's a polemic scene. When showing cuts of the film, many people had trouble with that scene, and they all flagged it for different purposes. And what I found out is that most people have a moral complex towards that scene, but they are kind of like ashamed of accepting it as a moral complex. So they just say like different things like, that scene is too long, or you don't need it, or the script don't need it, or the tone goes off, and nobody actually says the truth, like that scene is bothering me. And what I told everyone is that's one of the most important scenes in the movie. Because that scene is not because I want to be provocative or polemic, it's simply because that scene represents the essence of the movie, which is children having to see, trying to witness something they are not ready for. The whole movie is about that. So my editor insisted on making, my producers, everyone wanted that scene to be shorter. It used to be much longer. And my editor convinced me. He said, let's make it shorter, but put the yelling on top of the drawings. That's even more disturbing. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And that's why he convinced me to make this scene shorter.
Right. All right, let's see if someone has any crazy questions. Dante.
Well, I have two. At the end of the movie, you dedicate the movie to your brothers. I'd like to know what is it about, or your brothers, or.
She's asking why did he dedicate the movie to his brothers.
Well, I come from a family of three brothers. I'm the oldest. I have a very close relationship to my brothers. That's pretty much it. Like I made a movie about three brothers. So I wanted to dedicate it to them. I did tell them, oh, do you think people are gonna be like thinking we have like a weird, fucked up childhood? And my brother said, no, people will just think you had a good relationship with your brothers. So that's it. There's nothing more than that. It's not like I put like I am the oldest like this and the younger brother. But I did think when I very first wrote the script, the older brother was in a wheelchair, and they would take him around the whole time. Thank God we didn't do that, because that thing when they carry all their stuff when they go hunting, that thing was so hard to shoot upon. Like that thing kept like flipping and if we would have a wheelchair there, we would still be there shooting. Like Ricardo, my co-writer, he taught me into making him with crutches with one leg. I was like, no, he needs to be in a wheelchair. And at the point I kind of thought like I was never a very physical person, even growing up. Like I didn't play sports and do any of the stuff that normal kids do. And my brothers were like much more into sports. So I kind of felt like that was a cool way to reflect on, like the older brother was the one who made all the plans, but he couldn't like move so much. So that's something I kind of brought from our childhood there. But then the way Ricardo convinced me, he said he's gonna have one leg, and in the third act when the psychopaths get into the house, they're going to destroy his one good leg. And I was like, yes, let's do that. That's how he convinced me.
Was the actor handicapped? I'm sorry to take the.
No, that's VFX. That's we got rid of that leg. He had if you see the
prosthetic
before VFX, he has a blue leg. Yeah, and at some point we thought about bringing an actor that had one leg. It was just too complicated. Like this is a role that has many challenges already in order to make it more complicated. Yeah.
Right.
Sí.
¿Cómo fue el proceso de llevar a los niños hacia las escenas? ¿Cuál fue la idea? ¿Qué idea les diste? Nos vamos a divertir, pero para esas escenas fuertes, ¿qué tuviste que decirles o darles para que ellos entraran en ese juego?
Well, he's asking what was the process to take the kids into like the hardest, most intense scenes, right? First of all, the casting was hugely important. When you're a film professor, I used to have this say casting is 50%. I think when you're working with kids, casting is like 90%.
Right.
Get your right casting, and then the movie works. And we took a lot of time. And all these other times we were going to shoot the movie and we made casting. It was not wasted time because it worked for me to figure out what I wanted. So that really worked. And then when we actually made the casting, we were looking at kids for like 8 months. Mateo, the youngest kid who plays Benjamin, was the easiest to cast. The moment we saw him, we knew he was the role. Also with Oliver. Salvador, the oldest kid, was harder to cast because originally in the script I wanted a much younger kid for that role. I was looking for a kid that would be maybe like 11, 12, that would still look like a kid. And then the scene with Valeria, the sex scene was going to play out completely different, like a really older girl with a boy, and then it would seem way more desperate, like this film of the world, and this girl is coming to a kid. But it was really hard because that role, he needs to be like the boss of the house, like the adult. He needs to like yell at the kids. He needs to be very strong. And all the kids, it would just look fake. It looked like they were playing, like they were acting, like they were playing a general in a game, like a military general. So Rocio Belmont, my casting director, who I've done 3 movies with, I really trust her, and directing is also listening. She used to tell me, look for an older kid, it has to be older. And I kept insisting, no, I don't want him to be older because I don't want it to look like it's a teenager and 2 kids. It has to be 3 kids. But after months and months, we just couldn't find a kid that would sell it, the strong part. So I listened to her, I looked at the older kid, and Felix was great. He really had that power, that strength, that authority I was looking for. So sometimes directing is about making choices, so I ended up sacrificing that idea that I had in my head about that sex scene. So now, it still works, but now they almost look like they're the same age. Felix is, I think he was 18 and Carla was 25, but they still look almost like the same age. Where what I wanted was like a teen, like an older girl and a little boy. That doesn't sell there, but I sacrificed that in order to have an actor that for the rest of the movie really works as what I wanted. So it was like the better half, I would say. And then in order to take them to the scenes, I did a lot of rehearsals with them. I explained a lot what the story was about. I used a children acting coach, Ana Carrillo, my child coach, who I also used in Evil Eye, my previous movie, which is a movie that shares a lot of blood with this, but Evil Eye is like a very feminine coming of age, and this is like a very masculine coming of age. So in Mal de Ojo, Ana was really good with Paola and Ivana, so I called her now, and I told her, do you like that challenge of Mal de Ojo? She was like, yeah, and I was like, okay, read the script. And she said, oh, I don't know if we can do this. And then she helped me get the kids, because she's really good at helping me, taking them to as a director, and to focus on the other actors, the camera, everything that's going on, and she takes care of only the children. She's with there all day. She's the one that helps me explain to them that this is a game. She's the one that takes them to the emotion, but also takes them out of the emotion when we yell cut. And something I learned from them is with children, it's very good to, and this is unfortunate for the producers, because we ended up playing a lot in discs, because what we do is we don't cut. We make one scene and we show the scene again and again and again, like 8 times. So, for example, that scene when they are voting about going to kill someone or not, Anna just told me, just never yell cut, because when you yell cut, they step out of the emotion, the kids. So I would just shoot the scene like 1 minute, and I would say, okay, back from the start, and every time they make it more intense, or I set a very simple direction, like do this, do that, and then after I have it, okay, I yell cut, so it's like 1 take, but we made 8 takes in a take. So that's something I use a lot in kids, so they don't lose the focus and the concentration. And I think they had a good, it was a hard movie with the kids, because it's not only kids, it's kids with weapons, kids choking somebody, kids being choked, kids fighting. We had a stunts coordinator doing all that, and also the mothers of the kids really trusted me and my crew, because they saw it was all safety and the rehearsal with the stunts and all that. So we showed them how it was all safe, and they were all happy doing it. Yeah.
There's a nice scene when Salvador is coming to the cage with the crossbow, and then the ultimate moment, but at the last moment, the mother takes the crossbow and put it, on the head, and reminds me to a touching reference from The Fly.
My 4th favorite movie of all time.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you have any other film references or inspirations that made you do this impressive film.
Well, yeah, that's my homage to The Fly. I'm glad you caught it, because that's exactly what Brother Fly does in the end. And other references, film references, plenty. Well, I would say the very first inception of this idea, you can always track when you first came up with an idea, even if then the idea evolved a lot. It was at Fantastic Fest when they have the surprise screening, and it was one of my first surprise screenings, and I ended up seeing Goodnight Mommy. It's a movie that blew my mind completely, and it's the best way to watch a movie like that, because I had read, usually when you see a movie you know what the movie will be about, you've read the synopsis, but in this movie I had no idea what the movie was going to be about, and the movie just began, and it's this like Austrian movie with these kids singing, and then I saw these kids like in the nature, in the wildlife, in this cave, and all the time you're wondering where are the parents going to come back. And I remember I came back from that trip and I was like, oh, I need to write a movie like this with kids that where the parents are. And then at the same time, I always felt like I always like taking upon things that already exist and try to subvert them. Like zombies is like the most unoriginal thing ever. There's like a million zombie movies, but to me they never speak about what for me is the most interesting thing about infected movies, which is what would happen if a loved one gets infected. What would you do with that person? And there's Shaun of the Dead deals with that as a joke. There's Maggie. There's Cargo, but there's very few movies that talk about that. So I decided to make an entire more serious movie about that. And then also, Del Toro's movies, Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth, which are 2 of my favorite movies ever. and I think I remember being so shocked when I first saw Pan's Labyrinth. I was like 16 years old, and I've never seen anything like this in my life, because I was very shocked by the fact that it was like a fairy tale, literally a fairy tale with fairies, with creatures, like a story for children. Yet at the same time, you have this moment where the bad guy grabs this peasant and destroys his face completely, like in a gore that seems almost like from an Asian movie. And I was like, whoa, can that be done? Like, can you make a children's tale and also put like super gore in it? Like, that's the first time I ever saw that put on a movie. And then I saw this interview on Del Toro saying how he wanted to play with the contrast of beauty and brutality. That really stuck upon me. So my intention when making this movie, I wanted to make a movie that would feel very tragic, very bleak, very even hard to watch, and at the same time very sweet, very tender, very heartful. Go to those two extremes. So I think Del Toro inspired me on that. And then just other movies that deal with kids having to deal with stuff that would be even dangerous for adults, you know, like The Others, like Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, like even horror movies like Insidious, The Conjuring, like those kind of movies in a lesser way about kids having to face stuff that are hard for adults. And Good Night Movie I mentioned, those were some of my biggest references, yeah.
Thank you.
Speaking of references and influences, was there a reference to Parallel? He picked up a piece of paper with a mirror that looked like it may have been the mirror with the
I
adjustment.
think you took caught that, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. I always like to put an Easter egg on my movie about the previous movie. So all movies are connected, like all happening within the same universe. But there was like a mistake in the system. So when I did the similars, you discover at the end of the similars that the boy has the book of the incident, meaning that the incident was all inside this boy's head. Then I did Parallel. By the way, we have the editor of Parallel here in the room, Mr. Ben Baldwin. You remember, in Parallel I put the comic book of the similars. So even these producers at Bronx Studios, they were the ones saying, "Oh, I said this is the scene where you put in your comic book." Yeah, put it. They were happy to do it. But then I did Evil Eye. Evil Eye, produced by our dear friend Edgar, who was opening night director of Casa del Paraíso, great friend of mine. But what happened there is that in Evil Eye, when they go to the cabin of the witch was going to have the drawings of the mirror of Parallel. It made perfect sense because it was, okay, the mirror from Parallel comes from a witch who did it in Catemaco in the 1800s, like it was perfect. And just Edgar wouldn't let me put it. He said, you cannot do that. You cannot put the drawings of the mirror there. I was like, why? He said, that belongs to another movie. That's your ego. You cannot. I'm like, all my movies have a connection to the previous movie. It has to be there. We argued for like 2 months. He didn't let me put it. And he's a great friend. We have a really good relationship even now. But like now we even joke about it, but he just wouldn't let me put it. And it was very frustrating. It became, it got to a point where those arguments start by something small, but after months of talking about it, it just becomes huge. And he said stuff like the rights of that image. I was like, yeah, I can show you how the Bronx is not going to care about. Imagine they don't care if I put this mirror in the cabin of a witch, but I just couldn't put it. It was very frustrating for me. So then I said, well, in the next movie I owe too. So I need to put now the drawing of the mirror. So I put it there, and then there's the picture of the triplets of Evil Eye. He finds it there. Yeah, so really got that reference. Yeah, there was, like I said, a deviation, an error in the system, but I fixed it. Yeah.
I was actually trying to look if there was another two references in the movie, like for the similars and the incident. So now
there's the billboard for the incident. Yeah.
Only those two. My question was going to be this: I noticed that the older brother curses a lot, and that's I find it interesting that normally I will think that if the parents are not around, the kids will look up to the brother, and if the brother curses, they will start cursing too. Normally. I see that the kids, even when they are very, very upset and very angry, they do not curse at all. They are like very innocent language, very, very clean language. So I think that gives a little bit reference of the guy who is from the past that is upset, is the grim one. The other ones are more hopeful. because they're still clean, innocent language, although they have no restraints from the fathers telling that you shouldn't talk like this or anything. So that was a conscious decision to make that decision. I'm looking too much into it, or were you actually writing those dialogues that way on purpose?
I think you might be looking too much into it, but that's great. That's the point of a movie, right? The movie now is yours, and you can make up whatever you want. But I didn't think it that way, to be honest. I just felt, like I said, this boy it's supposed to be younger, it's supposed to be like 12, 13, like early teens. And I still wanted him to feel like the adult. And that's why he curses, because he needs to put authority, he needs to yell. And also, if you are, to whoever are parents here, you shouldn't just educate your kids yelling or cursing. It's like the worst education you can give. Sometimes we get desperate and we yell because we're human, because we can't control. But that's not the way you're supposed to raise someone. But because he is a child or an early teenager, he doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't have that maturity in him. So that's kind of like how I thought it. Because he doesn't have that maturity, he believes the only way he can put authority in the house is by being mad all the time, yell at them, but I wanted to, actually there's a lot of stuff that we cut because we didn't want the first act to feel, so like after the frog, after they eat the frog, he tells them a story and becomes like a storyteller to them, and I ended up cutting that, but I really wanted him to feel like he wants to yell, he wants to be strong, but also he has a heart. And when his brothers need him, he's there for them. And you see that when he doesn't kill the mother. And the reason why we cut that is because that still repeats itself throughout the movie. But that was the point. That's why he curses, because that he believes is the only way he can put on an authority. And he's not an adult, but he acts like an adult. Yeah.
Have time for one more?
Whatever you want, man. I'm here until my flight leaves tomorrow at noon. So.
I think it's quite obvious that horror and gore genres are having a revival. Blumhouse is one good example. How is your experience in this genre, assuming that your prior movies share the same genre, distributing as a Latin American director?
You mean my experience like showing gore and violence?
No, I mean
the distribution.
Yeah, the distribution.
Distribution, yeah, okay. It's, usually when something is very, very gory, it doesn't have a big market. It has a lot of niche, but it's like hard with the rating, and it's hard. So, I mean, it can become like a cult status, but it's not gonna have like a wide audience, like in a theatrical, But also, I never think of my stories or my films so much only for distribution. I think more like, what are the stories I want to do, what are the themes I want to touch upon, and then I just go and make the movie. It's kind of like trying to make a movie that will be sellable, will be commercial, but at the same time has enough footprint of you, like a movie only you could make, right? That's kind of like what I try to think, those two things in an average. When there's gore and there's violence, it has to be there for a reason. When I started making my early short films, you remember coming to my bedroom, it was full of like fingers, eyes, heart, and I had all this stuff, and I love making I find like a lot of filmmakers that end up later doing something more mature, like, I don't know, like Cronenberg, like, they all start with gore because it's very seductive. Like the idea of violence, of blood, is very seductive as a film student. So even my early short, like Nasty Stuff, which played here, are like body horror. Then when you make more of a feature film, you have to think exactly distribution. You have to think how it's going to reach an audience, and the gore doesn't become like the main thing. Or when you use the gore, it's for a reason. In this movie, for example, when they kill Valeria, it's super gory. But then when they kill Salvador in the ritual, when they take his heart out, it's more brutal, it's visceral, but it's not gory. You also see blood coming from his mouth. And the reason for that is that is emotional. I wanted people to feel like I wanted people to be sad, to be affected. And if you show the heart and all this, then you're just like grossed out. You're not, like, you take the emotion out. While the Valeria's death, that's different. That's just like a fun death. Just that I just want that to look like cool, So that's the difference. Now, still this movie being as it is, having a big problem, which is putting a lot of stress in my trip with the rating board in Mexico. They want to rate it clasificación C, which is not as rated R. It's like harder than R. It's
Yeah,
like
like
17. And we can't believe it. Me and the distributor are fighting for it. We've been fighting 3 months for it because Mal de Ojo, my previous movie, has harder stuff. It has the girl killing her grandma. It has the witch fully naked and was B15. And now they want to rate this C. And I go to the movies. I go to see Speak No Evil, the James McAvoy remake. How the boy hits the guy in the head, destroys it, and I send RTC, which is like the MPAA, and I show them videos of that. I send them videos of Evil Eye because this movie is a wide release. This movie is opening up wide in Mexico on November 7th. They want to open like in over 1,000 screens. If they put us rating C, it's gonna super affect us in the box office. And we have all this strategy. Well, we made a haunted house in Six Flags to promote the release. We want to promote it as a massive release, and this is completely ruining our strategy. And it's gotten to the point where they just told me we've tried everything, Isaac, and the reason why they say it's C is violence committed by children, and they want me to cut the moment when Benjamin kills the guy, and I'm having to make calls with the editor from here and see what we're gonna do. But it's a big problem. So just to answer your question about distribution, but I'm surprised by that. You know, I was talking to the distributors in the US about that. I just had dinner with them at Fantastic Fest, and they are releasing it here in 500 screens in February.
Which one?
This Parvulos.
In 500 screens?
Yeah.
In USA?
US, yeah.
Oh wow.
They're really betting hard for that. And I asked them, guys, what do you think of all this? That this is happening in Mexico? And they're like, we sold The Sadness, you know, the movie The Sadness. They said, we sold The Sadness, which is like people committing suicide all the time, jumping from buildings. So I realized the US is way more open. Like this Mexico, very old, like, how to say, like retrograde, just so
old-fashioned, old school.
Old-fashioned that they make us do like this. And I'm very, very sad that they are making me maybe have to cut my movie, but I'm still insisting, yeah.
Yes.
I thought the performances from all the cast, especially the children, was very strong, and I know how hard it is to work with kids. And also the film does a very interesting job of putting these kind of horrific situations through the lens of childhood and kind of subverting them, like especially the Christmas dinner and the violence. So I guess when, you know, written on the page, it would have been one way, but once you film it and you're in the editing room, how do you balance the tone of something that's too adult and something that still keeps like that childlike magic or distance from what's happening? And did you have any issues in the editing room having to kind of balance those tones?
Yeah, those two scenes, I guess the sex scene, which we talked about, and the Christmas scene, are the two moments of the movie where the tone goes a little in the limit. But you know, that happens, I think, with all my movies, maybe except from maybe Parallel, maybe Evil Eye, but with my first two movies, you know, The Similars is a movie about people becoming similars and women start growing a beard. And I always play this, I like to play with it, like some people tell me, hey, this is funny, your movie is funny. Yes, but it's not because it's meant to be a comedy. It's because I like to play with what I call the bizarre. And when you take the bizarre to the limit, you know, that is a homage to B-movies and to trauma. When you play the bizarre to the limit, it has two different effects on audience. It can become funny or it can become disgusting, depending on the person. And I like to be in that fine line between those two. I think the Christmas scene is kind of like that. When they clean the poop of the mother, it's kind of like that. So I always, but that's why I took it over the top, like the parents moving spoon like this and the baby, because I wanted to be in that fine line where, okay, this is weird, it's funny, but it's also strange. Like, and that's something you don't see so much like in your average horror movie. That's something that comes out more like B-movies or Lynch or, you know, I want to put that into the story. So that's kind of like what was the intention with that. Ricardo, my co-writer, had a lot of problems with those sequences. He said, like, this is out of the tone, they cannot do Christmas, this is like, because he's very much like I like writing with him because he grounds me down. And we have many projects together, and he is like the realistic guy. He helps me with the realistic things, like they go hunting, they need to make this, but I put all the crazy stuff in there. And then he said, okay, fine. But then he had a problem with the voiceover in the beginning and the end, and I said, no, that's the most important thing of the movie. And he said, if you leave the voiceover, I have to take off my credit as co-writer and leave it as argument, story by. And I was like, man, you shouldn't do that because you made a whole script with me. But if you want to do that, that's on you. The voiceover is not going out. And I feel I'm very proud of the script because I feel it's something that has like his realistic approach and my like, I guess the place where I wanted the movie to go. And but there are those scenes in the tone. I always work hard on making sure that was over the top, because that's what it's supposed to be, but still within the universe of the movie. And it's okay if it feels even funny, if it feels like the film's almost becoming a bit lighter, because then the audience kind of loses their guard and they're not ready for the ending that's going to be like super bleak. So I want to offer like a full roller coaster. So that's why those scenes are like that.
All right. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. Isaac, thank you. We'll see you in a few years with the next film.
Hopefully I can make another film. I'd love to come back to Hola Mexico.
Please, make more films.
Thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoy the movie. And yeah, if you like it, recommend it, tweet about it, write a review, and be there about reviews, because the movie's coming up in February, and we have to spread the word about it. Thank you.